to the matter at hand, all you ever wanted to know about the automotive industry, I have in studio with me two very dear long-term friends. I have to my left, Scott Crabtree. Scott, welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Thank you, Rock. Pleasure to be here.
To my right is Geoff Pohanka. And I'm sure you recognize that Pohanka name. Geoff, welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Rock.
All right.
Good to be here.
You know, there's so much to talk about and so little time. So let me jump right in. And certainly we're going to talk about buying and selling and financing and credit and why it's a great time to buy cars and that sort of thing. But before I do that, I have very passionately spoken of the Pohanka family being an advertiser on my program and it being much more than an advertiser program relationship, that there is a relationship that goes back 40 years. I became fascinated with the Pohanka Group in my teens when I saw something that I thought was very groundbreaking. There's two things I want to introduce this with that was groundbreaking. One, I looked up one day and saw a commercial, and there was an African American doing a commercial for Pohanka. His name was Lee Elder, who, you know, had risen in stature as a golfer at the time. And, you know, right around the '68 time period after the riots and Martin Luther King was killed and Bobby Kennedy, and to see this figure, I thought was something very inspiring. And it showed me at an early age sort of good corporate citizenship, one, and then something much more recently that I am aware of, and I hope this doesn't embarrass you, Geoff, but I'm going there. I'm intimately aware that you and the Pohanka organization had an opportunity to go to Miami, Florida, with a high-end Lexus and Acura dealership situation, as I understand it, and you had a choice between going there with the high-end, you know, automotive situation, and you had a chance to go to Prince George's County. And there are people that might have asked you, have you bumped your head? Because you chose Prince George's County over Miami, Florida. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, our family goes back in D.C. a long ways. My grandfather grew up in the Bronx, and he ran away from home in 8th grade, and he got a job on a horse farm. He was a stable boy, slept in the stable with the horses. And someone saw something in this young man, and he became a jockey, and a very good jockey. He raced all the United States and Canada. Eventually, he couldn't keep weight. Had to go to another business. He was good with his hands. He said, I want to become an auto mechanic. And this is back in like 1908, 1910. Cars were kind of new. Read every book there was about cars. Became a mechanic. Got hired in a shop. Got hired by General Motors, and they moved him to Washington, D.C. He had become an auto dealer here in downtown Washington, D.C. in 1919. And our roots are here. I was born in the district in the city of Washington, and I've lived here all my life, and it's hard to uproot and go someplace else. So my father moved the business from 20th Street downtown. It was an old Civil War era livery stable and movie theater. Movie theater was the showroom. Moved to Marlow Heights, Maryland, which actually was a rocking place at the time. I mean, this is where the biggest mall was in Washington. There was no Tyson's Corner at that point.
Yeah, Iverson Mall.
The big dealers were there, and we rocked and rolled for a lot of years. Sold Oldsmobile, had picked up Honda, had Fiat for a while. And, you know, then the area changed, and we grew in other areas in Chantilly with Acura and Lexus and Fredericksburg, acquired dealerships out in Salisbury. But we had these legacy stores in Prince George's County in an area that wasn't the right areas. And I tell people it was time to move back in the 60s to the suburbs because there was no room in downtown, you know, for an auto dealership.
Sure.
It's time to move again. So where were we going to move to? And there was an opportunity, because you only go so far with a factory. You have an area responsibility. You have to stay within that area. And there was a place near FedEx Field, Capitol Heights. When they built FedEx Field, they spent a lot of infrastructure money, built some new roads. They put a new intersection in exit 13 on the Beltway. And there was a space there. The Michael companies bought a space for retail development. It took me 7 years, the factory, and everybody to agree that that would work, the zoning. And then the question is, now, do I want to spend $35 million here in Prince George's County or not? is this the promised land? Can I make it work? And, you know, there was a lot of soul searching on that and a lot of work that I had to do to try to make that happen and get involved more in the county to create an environment where businesses can thrive, that people can live. And one area I'm particularly proud of is auto thefts. Auto thefts were an epidemic problem in Prince George's County.
Jeff, we certainly want to talk about that. We definitely want to talk about that.
But my heart's here, and my efforts are here in the city. I feel rooted here, and Washington's a great city to be in.
And I want my listeners, I want those of you in the metropolitan Washington area to just simply be aware of that great, not just good, but great corporate citizenship. I understand now that we have our third guest on the line, and that is Sandy Fitzgerald. Sandy is joining us from the eastern shore of Maryland. The Pohanka conglomerate is spreading and spreading, and Sandy Fitzgerald represents Pohanka and is has ownership interest in the Mercedes, in Honda, I know, in Nissan and Toyota. Is that correct, Sandy Fitzgerald?
Absolutely, Rock.
Welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Thank you.
Okay. Those of you, again, who want to call in, it is the number to call in, 202-889-9797. Let's jump in for a moment. You know what? Something that concerns us, Jeff, that you started to talk about. Why don't we talk about that for a moment? Why don't we let you finish that thought? You talk about auto theft. So many people that I am aware of have been victimized by auto theft. And it is very interesting sort of the leadership role that you and the Pohanka family took in trying to curtail auto theft. Can you talk to us about that for a moment?
Yeah, one thing about Washington, you know, this city is the most dynamic city in the world, and we're fortunate that we all live here in Washington. Certainly, Prince George's is an area that doesn't thrive in all the areas of development as maybe Montgomery or Fairfax. And if you look at it, Prince George's is in the top, has the highest African American middle income population in the United States, is in one of the top 100 income counties in the United States. But we have a myriad of social problems, and auto theft was one of those. And I set out in the process to try to do something about it. And the good news is we got auto theft down over 80% in the past 5-6 years. And that was not just through my efforts, but I got the ball rolling, I think, because it was either get auto thefts down, which we're all being victimized, including our dealerships and individuals, or I can't make this investment. So I had a choice to make, and I want to roll my sleeves up to do something about auto theft to get the government to take it more seriously.
And, you know, look, folks, one of the staples of our lives is transportation. And, you know, the automotive industry is a backbone, is absolutely a cornerstone of the United States economy. Scott Crabtree, let me ask you, as we speak today, is this a good time to buy a car? Is it, you know, should one be more leery about buying now? Talk to us about, you know, timing, how to get the best deal.
This is the best time that there's been in any recent history, maybe in all of history, to buy a car. Interest rates are at an all-time low.
I was going to say why.
Interest rates are at an all-time low, and it's always a challenge if interest rates are low, but the banks won't loan you any money. Then that gets to be a challenge. But the banks are loaning money now, and actually, the automobile industry tends to be a leading segment when the economy is recovering, and you're reading about housing's recovering, so there are a lot of things that are going in a positive direction, and the automobile industry is a leading part of that. And the big part is that there's cars available. The manufacturers are probably making the best cars that they've ever made. And then the customer is in a position where he can own that car for the smallest percentage of his income. you get more for your money now than ever in the history.
And, you know, your word you always hear in the automobile industry is, you know, you get a good deal. But the point you're making here is with the interest rates low, with the availability of cars, so that is then a great time for the consumer.
Very good for the consumer. Manufacturers, they want to sell cars now. They want to make the deal available for the consumer. So.
Sandy Fitzgerald, let me ask you, one of the things that I have the good fortune of getting feedback on is some of the experiences that some of our listeners have had when they've sort of listened to us here and gone to purchase a car from our advertiser, Pohanka. What I want to ask you about is I talk to women oftentimes that have great trepidation about walking into a car dealership. They're just petrified about buying a car or having a car serviced. Sandy, talk to me about that, and also is there a peculiarity in terms of what you find? You know, is there a sort of an equal access credit, women versus men? Is there any difference there? Because I've heard some talk about that. So if you could address those things for me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Rock. I don't know what you mean on an equal access credit, but I will tell you in Salisbury, we're about pretty half and half on women in our sales and service departments. We have just as many women on the sales floor and writing service. So a woman walking into our stores shouldn't feel any different than a gentleman walking into our stores. So maybe that's because of me being at the head. I think things have
Would
changed.
you disagree with that, Scott, that it doesn't have to necessarily do anything with Sandy?
I would agree that it has a lot to do with Sandy, but part of our drive throughout the whole organization is to make the opportunities for women to come into a dealership and feel comfortable, and so we really work hard at that. And part of it is developing people like Sandy. Now, Sandy did grow up in that Marla Heights area, went to high school there, went to college in Maryland, and she started as a switchboard operator.
Where'd you go to high school, Sandy?
Crossland. And Rock, you and I worked together. What year was that? It was late 70s?
It was probably something like that, but I wanted to know what high school you went to, because I know the high school that I went to used to beat y'all all the time.
I don't know about that.
But Scott, about the development, because that's a very important aspect.
Well, taking someone like Sandy, who worked for us when she was still in high school, and giving her an opportunity to grow and develop with us, and here we are years later. And she is our partner and running the operation in Salisbury. How many people do you employ there, Sandy?
250.
Yeah, and we sell potentially 500 or 600 cars there. We are the dominant operation there in that market. But Sandy, grew up with us in the business and developed, and she had an equal opportunity, but actually outperformed her male counterparts, and that's why she is where she is today.
Sandy, you go, girl. Let me before we go to break, we have on the line, if I can read that right, Maria from White Plains, Maryland. Maria, thank you for calling the Rock Newman Show.
Sure. Good morning, Rock. How are you guys doing this morning?
Great.
I'm calling because I just heard your comments about women going into the dealership. And actually, I went to the Pohanka dealership down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And this is probably about 2 months ago. And you're right. Women going into a dealership were scared to death. And I have to admit, I figured, well, I'll just go down, just walk around and see how they are. And your first experience is you walk in and you're bombarded by them running up to you and say, well, what can we do for you today? I actually got to walk around out into the yard to see what they had out there, and then a salesman came out, and he goes, hi, how are you doing? Oh, pleasantries. And we went inside, and he said, well, did you see something that you were interested in? And I said, yes, that there was 2 out there. So he said, well, why don't we take a test drive them both, which we did. And the second car was the car I chose. And I have to admit, he was a very pleasant gentleman, and I'm so sorry I cannot remember his name. But we worked up the paperwork. They came back with a price that I was quite pleased with. I even had a trade-in, and you know that. They always say you never get what your car is really worth, but he actually gave me a little bit more than I thought I was going to get, because I had checked it before I went down. And then we went through going into the credit process, and once I got in there, I was in and out within 20 minutes. So to say that it was probably the best experience I've had at a dealership.
That is, I'm great to hear, and I'm sure that's great for you guys to hear, because
that's the goal.
That would be the goal. You get a lot of complaints, and I'm going to get some complaints from my producers here if I don't take a break for some commercial announcements. We got to pay the bills, y'all.
Understandably so, but it was great to be able to call in and talk to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for your business.
Take care.
Back to all you ever wanted to know about the automobile industry. Which of you, Sandy Fitzgerald, you still there? Sandy Fitzgerald, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I have Sandy Fitzgerald as a guest on the line from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Scott Crabtree, and Geoff Pohanka. When I worked at Pohanka back in the early 70s, I remember Geoff coming in there bouncing around, and, you just looked so much younger. Well, my God.
Still young.
You look so much younger now, man. So, again, all three of you, welcome to the show. Let me throw out to you guys the question. Often you hear about these leasing programs, and you hear about, should I buy a car or should I lease a car? What's the answer?
Well, a lot depends on.
Can I answer that, Rob?
Sure. Ladies first.
I think my feeling is that leasing is probably the best way to go 9 out of 10 times.
Oh, wow. Really? Really?
Absolutely. Many different reasons. You pay a lot less for a car over time and get more cars basically for the same period. If you were to spend the same amount of dollars for 6 years, with leasing you would get 2 new cars. If you financed the car for that same period of time, you would have 1 new car. And basically that's the number one reason I say that. And people say, well, I put too many miles on a car to lease it. Not true anymore. A consumer eats the cost of those miles themselves more if they purchase the car or finance the car than they do if they lease. On a lease, the manufacturer usually charges 20 cents to 25 cents a mile at lease turn-in. The way we lease customers, we trade them back. We don't go to lease turn-in, so they never see a mileage penalty. But if they did, that amount is way less than what they would eat trading that car back in, if that makes sense. If you do the math from Kelley Blue Book and you look at what a car is worth with 15,000 miles versus, let's say, 30,000 miles, you're going to lose more than 20 cents a mile. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, Scott,
manufacturers today also put more incentives on leasing than financing, so the customer gets a better payment on the lease.
Now, let me ask, is that a philosophy standard? I mean, is that a manufacturer and industry standard and approach?
The manufacturer obviously wants you back in the market quicker, so if you're coming back every 2 or 3 years, it's better for them. But it's also better for the consumer. Look how fast technology is changing today. If you're in a car that's 6 years old, you probably don't have the most safety updates on the sides of the car, the engine dropping down. You probably don't have Bluetooth. You probably don't have the newest GPS in the car. Nowadays, you can look up the weather on your GPS screen. There's so many things that are in a car today that weren't in there so many years ago.
So as a company, Scott, are you now? Is that the push now? Is that the initiative to get more people to lease?
Okay, let me answer that a couple of ways. One of the things that Sandy was talking about there was it's to the customer's benefit. What the customer actually does with lease is they can delay the decision to purchase the car. In other words, they have the option to purchase the car at the end of the lease at a fixed price. So if they want to own it, they can. Now, they have a lower payment for those first 3 years. But at that point in time, if the car, and when Sandy's saying with the miles, the value of the car could actually be less than the lease. And in that case, the consumer would decide not to buy the car, and the manufacturer would eat the depreciation. So if the car was worth more than the agreed upon value, the consumer could then buy the car or trade the car and get the benefit of that appreciation.
Folks, you probably saw something when Scott Crabtree was introduced. Those of you who are watching at www.rocknewmanshow.com, you probably saw something when he was introduced where the Dustin Hoffman movie Marathon Man was put up on the split screen. The reason that was put up on the split screen is because this guy here is truly a marathon man. Scott's a little bit past 65 years old. I'm telling some secrets here, but he wins competitions for folks that are in their 50s, and he's a true marathon man himself. Geoff Pohanka, what is the future of what's coming? What's coming in the automotive industry? What's coming that perhaps we're not aware of? What do you see coming down the pipe?
Well, if I go back for a second on lease, I think one thing, lease may seem complex, but I think when customers go in the showroom, they should ask about it and then do a side-by-side comparison, because lease is an option with certain cars to have a new car in your driveway all the time. You know, so there are things with how many miles you drive, things like that, but a lot of people reject it without looking into it. I think consumers should look into it, and there may be some things there that if they learned about, they would really like and continue to do. Car industry is always changing, but it is changing. We still have the internal combustion engine. We still have most cars that have 4 wheels, you know. But right now, you're getting a lot of options, things in the cars you didn't have before. Now, I'm driving a new Honda Accord. I think this is one of the best-selling cars in the United States. I think it's going to become the best-selling car in the United States, the new Honda Accord. You can get 40 miles per gallon highway in this car. This amazing this gas miles, and this is a Honda Accord. This is a mid-size car. It has standard backup camera. Every Accord has backup camera, and a lot of Hondas, like every Civic now, is a backup camera. It has a device. If you get too close to a car in front of you, it warns you that you're getting too close to this car, and you can turn that off if you don't like it. And if you veer out of your lane, it beeps too. Now, I find this thing going off all the time because I ride on a little close to people, and my mind's active, and I didn't realize, so I get off lane. But these are all standard features which are coming in cars, besides 6 airbags, all the other things. So there's a lot of exciting things, the communication, Pandora, which I don't know enough about, you know, obviously the Bluetooth, all those things. There's a lot of new technology coming. Fuel mileage is getting better, safety is getting better, and the price is really going up that much.
You know something?
You're getting a lot for your money.
This is going to sound absolutely like a shameless shill. However, I've had every car in the world, from the most raggedy, broke down, muffler falling off, burning my hand, picking it up on this highway in the middle of the night, to perhaps some of the most expensive cars that you could possibly have. I've always said, like they say in the boxing ring, this fighter pound for pound is the best. I've always thought, dollar for dollar, the Honda automobile was the best car in the industry. Let's talk about service. You know, you guys are crazy. Your service department is open from 6 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. Where did that concept come from?
Let me say, not everybody has enough money, but nobody has enough time. Mm-hmm. We're always busy, and when you start thinking about service, that's one of the hardest things most people think is getting a car serviced.
Yeah, it's a pain.
How do you get in there? How do you, I mean, and so what our drive is we try to build the business. As you see Rock, as you see Sandy, these are people that have been with us, years and years. We build the business. Well, the customer needs a good experience in service. That's the most important aspect of the whole process. You buy a car once, you service it 5, 10, 15 times over years. That needs to be a great experience. So how do you do that? What's most important to the customer is it's got to be easy. It's got to be so easy that it's like a non-event. Not a struggle, not a fight, not a scramble, but a non-event. Now, how do you do that? Well, the best way to do that is do it right the first time when the customer comes in. But the other part of it is we're open from 5:30 in the morning in some of our dealerships till 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Now, that includes Sunday, obviously, 365 days a year. So now the customer doesn't have to make an appointment. He doesn't have to call into the dealership. He knows that if he drives by, drives in, we're going to be there and service is going to be open. And we're going to jump out there and try to take care of him. And our goal, make that easy, then get that car done in an hour or less. So it's more like making a pit stop in NASCAR. You know, you go in there, get your car fixed. You don't have to call ahead. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to deal with things. But then if in most of our dealerships, if we can't get it done in 45 minutes, it's something more complex, something we can get it done in that hour or less, 75% of the time, and the customer drives away. So now think about it. He doesn't have to think about it. He stops, gets it done, drives away. It's done in an hour or so, not a week, a day.
Right. And this is basically, most customers have to go by the dealer schedule. In this situation, we're working with the customer schedule. We'll staff our shops based on when customers want to come in. And so what's interesting is when, before we did this at some stores, we'd say, you know, come in at 7, come in at 8. People want to come in at 10. You know, they don't act, if we were going to be on the customer schedule, our staffing will be different than if they're on our schedule, because it's free flow. And it really makes it so easy. You don't have to think about it. You can just come in anytime we're open, and we'll take care of you.
You know, let me ask about this. You guys also sell used cars, and when folks talk about sort of the bottom rung of people's impression of a profession, they always say, you know, well, you know, they acted like a used car salesman. Is what's the sense? Do you find any sense in the industry now that sort of that used car salesman chagrin has been elevated at all? Talk to us about the used car buying, you know, purchasing a used car.
I think that what's exciting about our business is used cars, because not everyone can afford a new car. And there are a lot of certified cars now, which are a lot of off-lease cars that are low mileage and really great condition. And with a certified pre-owned car comes with an extended warranty up to 100,000 miles and an extension of the factory warranty. And that this is basically taken, and cars are made much better now. It used to be a car with 100,000 miles was just ragged out, falling apart. A car with 100,000 miles now might be closer to new than be used, because it still rides good gas mileage, looks good. Cars last almost indefinitely with proper care, in a sense. Now, one thing we're doing in Capitol Heights at our Honda and Hyundai dealerships is almost every used car is either factory certified, which comes with additional factory warranty, or it's Pohanka certified. And a Pohanka certified car means we're going to put a 2-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty on every car we sell that's newer than 9 years and under 90,000 miles. So at no additional cost. So you'll have the assurance that this car is going to be a good car, and you're not going to have some big expenses after you buy it. So, and we also contact every single customer at our dealerships in Capitol Heights and some other stores who bought used cars. We treat them just like a new car customer. We want to assure their total satisfaction with us.
Let me introduce a little politics
They
here.
have the potential, when we look at it, they have the potential for becoming a new car customer. So we want to treat them better.
Gotcha.
Or as good. We treat everybody better.
Hey, Brock.
Yes.
Brock, Let me say that the question you asked is about the salesperson, too. Today, the new car salespeople are selling both. They're selling used cars, the training that they go through from the manufacturer to not only sell new cars, but certified used cars. So you're pretty much dealing with the same salespeople, whether you're buying new or used. So hopefully that misconception is gone.
Yeah, let me introduce a little politics here. When Barack Obama became president, the economy was absolutely in tatters, and he insisted that there be part of his economic development for the country that there was an auto bailout, and there was an awful lot of resistance to that. You know, take us back to that time, and how did you guys feel about what was going on at that time when folks were actually fighting against an economic bailout, which was thought to some extent, if that didn't happen, then the economy would collapse.
It was a very difficult time. I mean, the world was imploding, and clearly one of our key industries is the auto industry. 1 out of 8 people in the United States works directly or indirectly in the auto industry, making steel, glass, plastic, or selling cars or servicing. 1 out of 8, so it's a primary industry, and basically one that needed support. And sometimes you do things, you don't know the results, but General Motors is making about $7 billion a year. Chrysler's still here. The auto industry is back on its feet. The U.S. is making competitive cars, and you know what? It's an investment a big investment that probably had to be made, and you know what? It's generally been pretty successful.
So, for you guys as a company, let me see. Let me run down this list. You've got Acura, Honda, Lexus, Mercedes, Chevy, Hyundai, Toyota, Nissan, and you sell used cars.
And we're getting Volkswagen soon.
You're getting Volkswagen. Okay, you've got 11 collision centers. What's the new horizon for you guys? Are you bringing in any other manufacturers? You're just going to develop what you have here? What's on the horizon for you guys?
We are aggressively looking to expand. I mean, we think the automotive business is a great business, and there's great opportunity and great potential and great expansion. So yeah, we are very, very much interested in continuing to grow our business.
Now, when you guys, when you all get yourselves involved with like sports programming, when you develop marketing that is around, let's say, a professional football team, you make sure that you've got your signs out there. What's other than what I would think that is the best way for any person, for any company to sell anything is being word of mouth. What do you find your most effective advertising to be?
We like to get involved in the community. Sandy she is the head of the Chamber of Commerce, Sandy, for this past year. Yes. And what other things have you done down there with the community that you think helps our business?
The biggest thing that we did down here, Rock, is we started a Pohanka Pays It Forward when the recession started. We felt that the first thing that big companies stopped doing is helping charities. So with the purchase of every car, we started a program where we let the customer choose which organization, nonprofit organization, that we gave money to. So we've given, probably close to $1 million back to our local community in the past 4 or 5 years to numerous charities. We support a local Boys and Girls Club for at-risk kids here in Salisbury. We support a Main Street boxing gym, which you're familiar with because you've helped us with that. I sit on many different boards down here and try and do as much as I can within the community.
Look, okay, let's say you've got someone fresh out of college. They are 22 years old. They don't have strong credit. They don't have a big down payment. how does that person go about buying a car?
Fresh out of college is easy. There's many college grad programs, probably with every manufacturer out there. Normally, a person's starting credit would need somebody to co-sign with them, but most banks and manufacturers, credit companies today have first-time buyer programs out there, as long as there's no negative marks on it.
College kids, keep your credit report free of terrible blemishes.
Yeah, the other thing that we do, we have very strong relationships with our lenders. And so we do an extensive interview with a customer and look for the positives, you know, and really the main thing that any lender should take into consideration. Does this person have a likely probability of paying the loan? If they are likely to pay that loan, then it's a good risk. And no matter what it shows on the report, no matter what you look at in the numbers there, do they have the likelihood of paying this out? And if we can evaluate that and do that through an interview process, we have an opportunity to go to bat for that.
And the likelihood of me going off the air if I don't go to this commercial break is very strong. So let's go to this commercial break. We'll be right back. Join us when we get back here on the Rock Newman Show. Call us 202-889-9797. We are about to wrap up here at the Rock Newman Show. We've been talking all about the automotive, all you wanted to know about the automotive world and the automotive industry. But what I'd like to do to ask, and Geoff Pohanka, since you've got that name, Pohanka, let's let you close this out. In terms of, okay, you know, you've got competitors out there, and, you know, everybody, you know, claims to be the best, claims to be the greatest. What is it that you would say are the cornerstones of what makes Pohanka different, and why the customers should come to Pohanka as opposed to choosing another operation?
I think there are really four things that we try to do that help differentiate us. One is to have the very best products, have great locations, have great people, and great processes. And I think one thing that probably shows that we work hard for the consumer is that we're going to have our 100th anniversary of our company in about 6 years. So we survived the depression, we're growing, we're thriving, and we're only doing that because of the consumer. And we appreciate every one of our customers and our associates who work for us, who help us make us who we are. And we've got fifth generation Pohanka in the dealerships, and we're thankful for the opportunity to serve the public like we have.
And let me just say, in a heartfelt kind of way, I am thankful that you guys are an advertiser and a sponsor of the Rock Newman Show. I am thankful that the three of you, Sandy Fitzgerald, Scott Crabtree, and Geoff Pohanka, were able to join me today.
The Rock Newman Show.